Amen. Amen. So I usually start with a story, so I figure I'll start with a story today. You can see I have a new pair of glasses. They're not really glasses, they're just readers because mine broke. Yeah, I know. And, the arm came off, and so I went and tried to get it fixed, and they said, oh, no, that's the hinge. You can't do that. You have to. How many know how expensive glasses are? Just unbelievable. So I went, and Pete told me about these readers. Pete, I got some of these. Buy one, get one free. You know what I mean? It's a good thing because I'm down to one pair already, and I got them yesterday. Yeah. And so today, I don't know how I'm going to do it. They're just for reading, so I may be taking them on and off quite a bit. If that bothers you, sorry about that. And so this morning was an interesting morning. Let me take a sip of my coffee. This is just so good coffee. You ever have this? It's the nitro. Oh, bursting with coffee flavor. It's so good. Yeah. So this week's been a real busy week, especially with Michelle being gone, Brent's gone, Brock and I are the only ones at home, and so Brock just makes a mess in the house, and I have to clean it. I don't know where Brock's at, but so this morning I get up. Well, last night I was working on the message pretty much all day yesterday, on and off, and then last night just kind of finalizing it, and went to bed, and I thought, well, I'll just get up early in the morning and come in here, and that's when I'll do my notes, like, make them all up and print them all out and all that kind of stuff. And so woke up this morning and turned on the water to get a shower, and the water's not working right. Yeah, the pump, we have a cistern, and so something was up with the pump, and so water pressure was like nothing. And so I'm standing under a trickle. You ever take a shower like that before? Just under a trickle. This is terrible, and so I thought, well, I'll go downstairs and I'll figure that out. And I realized, Pete, the same thing, my cistern went dry, so I put the hose in the cistern, because I have city water, it's just not hooked up yet. So I put it in the cistern and started filling it up. So apparently, Brock took a shower the night before. I think he ran the cistern dry. Anyways, the pump for the cistern must have been running all night long. And so kind of running dry. And so the pump, so I'm taking the nut off the pump to prime it, because it's filling up now, to prime it. Well, when I get it, it's kind of like spraying out a little bit, I turn it off, and there's so much heat in it, so much pressure, it just blows, and the nut for it just shoots off. It's gone. I don't know where it's at. And so I'm looking for that. Now I have no water whatsoever, right? So I go upstairs and wake Brock up, tell Brock, I said, Brock, listen, you have no water. So I don't know what you're going to do. There's water in the fridge to brush your teeth. You want to shower. There's no shower this morning. No nothing. I can get a bucket for you, like we used to do in Africa, fill it up with the hose, put it in the shower. You could take a bucket bath, And he says, no, that's okay, Dad. I'm like, I can't believe it. So I kind of get ready and everything, and I get in the Jeep. I've been driving the truck like all weekend. I have a little pickup truck. Get in the Jeep, and I started the Jeep up, and ding, ding, ding. It's like on E. Like there's like no gas in this thing whatsoever, I'm not going to, Michelle had been driving it. Hopefully she's not watching this morning, but she parked at last, and so anyways, I get in there, and there's no gas in it, so I come to church. I get here, I go get gas first. I get here to church, go in and start printing my notes out. I make them all up, put on there, hit print, and says there's no toner. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, really? And so, I'm trying to find ways to get. I find an old toner thing. I kind of shake it, put it in there. You see your notes? You see? Can you read them? It's almost like invisible ink. I think it's going to disappear by the end of the service. You can't hardly read them, can you? Every 10, it says no ink, no toner. I got to shake it again, put it in there, So then I finally get them printed and do all that, and I just leave, And I went to Home Depot. I figured I need to get one of those nuts for the pump. So I get there and I'm thinking, this was like really dumb. I have no idea the size of what that is. Do I buy like every size there is, or what do I do? And I'm looking, and then I found one. It was like I thought it might work, but then it's like, do you want the fine thread or coarse thread? I don't know. It's for my pump. And so anyways, I drive all the way back home, and I get there, and I'm scouring everywhere, and so I'm kind of on the ground, and when I get back up, everything's wet. My knees are wet and everything. I got to change my clothes, and I find a thing and put it on there, and finally get it back, and so I leave, and I go down and get my coffee, and I get a phone call. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but Connie was a little nervous because I wasn't here. She goes, Jeff, are you speaking this morning? I said, yeah, I'm speaking. She goes, okay, but you're not here. I go, and I know. I said, be patient. Be patient. Everybody open up their notes. Open up your notes. See, it says lovemaking. Underneath that, what's it say? Patience. 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 So my plan was just to come in here at about like right now, like 10:24, just see how many people were still left. How many people would just leave and go, I'm not waiting for this guy, right? So when you have a day like that, and here, the funny thing, no one said this to me, but I bet you there's some people out there thinking it. So I'm preaching on patience. See, God's making you wait. Do you really think that's the way he works? Do you think that's what he does? I mean, listen, Michelle was the one who didn't put gas in the car. Not God. Right? Like, I'm the one who took the nut all the way off. God didn't do that. You know what I mean? Brock's the one who ran the water out of the cistern, not God. Are you following me? I don't think God works like that. I think God will use situations in life, don't you? I think he'll use those things. I don't think God's manipulating circumstances, pulling all these strings to, just to teach me patience. I don't think so. I don't think I need him to do that. I think there's enough in life that happens that I don't need God, pulling all these strings. So, thinking about patience, as you're reading this chapter on love, I sat for a while, honestly, just for about, I don't know, probably a half hour to 45 minutes, just with the thought that when Paul's penning this about love, right? So there's a lot of things you could say, there's a lot of things in there. The very first thing he says is love is, what's he say? Patient. Love is patient. So I sat for honestly 45 minutes just thinking, wow. Why did you start there? Is that the first thing that came to your mind? Is that, what is it about this? And I started thinking about the whole passage. And I was thinking, without patience, the rest of the things are going to be more difficult. Don't you agree? Right? Like, how do you be kind with somebody if at first you're not patient with them? You can't do it. So this is just me talking, okay? As I look at this, I'm thinking this is almost like the hinge pin, don't you think? Like patience. It starts there. It starts there. And it's not that, I want you to know something, it's not that you learn patience one time, right? You guys know that. What I'm going to tell you today, anything I have to say today, this is not anything at all new to any of us. But it's something I think we just need to hear over and over and over again. I think it's important. How many of you still today in your life need patience? I still need patience every single day. Starting even from yesterday on. The funny thing was that this morning, I wasn't, even though I was kind of, a little frantic about a couple things, I didn't feel rushed, right? So, that nut came off, So in the corner of my basement sits this pump. And so when you build a house, you have a block wall. On top of the wall, you have a plate, and then you have your joist set on top of that. So they go back into your. So there's a ledge up there. How many know in the basement there's a ledge up there, right? And then I have this cabinet built in, and there's a ledge up there. So I'm looking for this nut. Where am I looking? Everywhere on the floor. I'm looking everywhere, you know? And I couldn't find it, so I left, and I went to Home Depot. I went back there. And I'm looking around. I'm looking for this thing, you know, and I just kind of think, nah, there's no way. So I get a bucket and get over and look, and sure enough, it blew up, hit something, ricochet. You know how things fall? You ever do that? You ever been on a ladder and drop a screw? Is it ever underneath your ladder? It's never there. Look at the most strange, unusual place, right? If there's a grate somewhere with a little, it went down there. Guarantee that's where it went. So I get up there. Sure enough, it's sitting up there. It popped the head up there somehow. You got to be kidding me, right? So anyway, I get it and put it back on, and I found that thing. But patience is something that we all need. Have you ever lost your patience? Recently? Yeah. Recently, yeah. I think that's why. This is why I believe honestly that Paul, in his wisdom, however you want to say it, in his sensitivity to the Spirit leading him, whatever. This is why I think patience is number one. Macrothumia is one of the Greek words that's used throughout Scripture. Patience is never used in the Old Testament. I found that out. Patiently is, but patience never is. Patiently, and it's in. Now there are some times when it's translated that way, but it's kind of mistranslated. But macrothumia means this: takes a long time to boil. Do you take a long time to boil, or do you boil like real quick? Sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we just boil real quick, right? Macrothumia, patience, takes a long time to boil. We have a different phrase for it, right, don't we? We have he has a long fuse or a short fuse, right? And the truth is, both those are true of all of us, right? Sometimes we have a short fuse. Sometimes we have a long fuse. So what I want to talk about today is, do you ever hear this phrase, patience is the queen of all virtues? Do you ever hear that? That's pretty common. As I was contemplating this, I was thinking, I really agree with that. I agree with it. Because it's hard to have, like I said, it's hard to have any of the others if you don't start with patience. So I'd like to start out by doing this. I'd like to start out by making just 3 observations. They're in your notes there. Just my observations, that's all. You could, please, and you should always do this. These are my thoughts. Think of your own. Think of, what things do you think triggers a lack of patience in your life? So I have 3 observations of where or why we're going to need patience, okay? Now, the first one comes just simply from living with other human beings in my home. And that's this, is that we're all different. We're all different. Isn't that true? Just think of your own household. I don't care who you live with, doesn't matter. How many of you have a built-in internal clock? Some people are like that. Built-in internal clock, right? I mean, you kind of always kind of know what time it is. You can kind of, you're like Kramer, you know what I mean? You get up at 7 o'clock, wait a minute. Okay, I set my clock. Tomorrow at 7, I'm going to wake up, right? Anybody here can do that? Anybody here can Maria, Pete? Yeah, a couple people can say, I'm going to get up at this time, and sure enough, you'll get up at that time. No matter what that time is, you don't need a clock, right? How many of you have an internal mechanism to find fun? Anybody like that? That's Michelle. Michelle is that. She does not have the internal clock to wake up. No. Either do my boys. My boys don't even have external clocks to wake up, let alone internal clocks. But we're all different. Now, the thing is that when we go through life, what bothers us, what bugs us, is when people or we want people to behave in a certain way and they don't. And the way we want them to behave is what we project on them, and that's usually what? The way we are. So, how many of you consider on time being 15 minutes early? I get there early, right? Other people, on time is on time. I'll never forget, Brent had to work down in Finleyville. He worked at Giant Eagle. And I said, Brent, it's like quarter, you know where I live. Everybody knows where I live. So it's like quarter till the time he has to be there. I said, Brent, you better go. You're going to be late. I'm not going to be late. I said, it's quarter till. He goes, I know what time it is. I go, when are you going to leave? You have enough time to get there. I said, and so I'm sitting there, like I'm nervous. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, he's going to be late. Like, you can't be late for work. So he leaves at about 7 minutes till. I said, Brent, you're going to be late. No, Dad. It takes 6 minutes to get there. I'm going to be 60 seconds early, as a matter of fact. He said, don't worry, I'll sit in my car for that 60 seconds. Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Right? And then you have African ways. My friend Chris up in Michigan, he's so funny. We were up there one time. We were on his boat, and we were surfing. And Brock was there. I don't know if Brock's up in the balcony or not. Maybe he went home. I don't know. But we were out there surfing on his boat, and we're having fun. And Brock's surfing, and Chris looks at his watch, and I said, "You got to go somewhere." Yeah, in a little bit. And I said, Brock, come on in. Chris got to go. He said, no, Brock, because I want to go one more time. So he went surfing again, and he came in, and so Chris says, I got to go. And so he takes off back to his dock. As we're going back, I go, where are you going? He goes, well, I have a funeral to do. I said, you have a funeral to do? Yeah. And so I said, what time? And it was like, in like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. The funeral. I kid you not. He gets off the dock. I would run to the house. He walks to the house. He gets in there, he puts his suit on, he comes out, and his tie's just around his neck. He's getting in his car. He goes, listen, just I'll be back in about an hour or so, and we'll go back out on the boat. You know what I mean? He's getting in his car. I'm thinking, like, I couldn't live like that. Like, I couldn't. I've been to like pastors' conferences with him before. You know what I mean? And we want to get there and get a good seat or something like that. Good seat. We were in California, and it was this massive church out there. Mariners Church, it's called. You can Google and look it up. A massive church, probably seats a couple, 2,000-3,000 people. All these pastors, it's like full. So we get there. I said, Chris, we're not going to get a seat. He goes, So we get there. We're like 15 minutes late, because he has the car. So we go in. Sure, there's no seats. Come with me. We went and we sat outside. They had a big projection TV. We got some chairs. We sat outside in the sun, watched it on TV. I said, I could have done this at home. He goes, yeah, but isn't this fun? We're in California and we're sitting out there. Like, I was nervous the whole time. The point is this: we're all different, aren't we? We're all different. We're all different. And we think that, listen, behave like me, and I won't have to worry about patience or whatever. But how fun would life be then? Like I don't want everybody to be like me. I don't want everybody in my house to be like me. We think we want that, but we really don't. And so we are all different. We're all unique. We are all individuals. Have you said any phrases like this in the past week or 30 days? Why does he act that way? I just don't understand her. Anybody say that? I just don't. Oh my God. Okay. I better take a drink. How about this one? She just doesn't make any sense. Right? How about this one? Why do you get so emotional? Don't ever say that to your wife. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I do, just don't ever say it to your wife. Or why do you get so upset? Or why are you always late, right? Anyway, all these phrases are just doing what? They're pointing out just our differences. Just our differences. And so here's the thing. We're going to need patience in life no matter where we are. Whether it's in your home, whether it's in your workplace, right? Whether it's with, on vacation. It doesn't matter where you are. You're going to need patience. Why? Because you are different. And everybody around you is different. The second thing is this. Second thing is because accidents happen. Because accidents happen. Hey, I'm gonna give you a phrase, and the sooner you get this phrase and you assimilate it into your life and you live it, the happier you're going to be. You ready? Here it is. Nothing ever goes as you planned. Isn't that like one of the truest statements you can ever think of? Nothing ever goes exactly the way you planned. That's really bad for the planners in life. Really bad for them. But the truth is that we all plan. Even those who don't plan. See, here's the thing. Some people plan, weeks in advance. Some people plan days in advance. Some people hours. Some people minutes. But they still plan. Don't you agree? They still plan. Still have an idea of what's coming, of what they're going to do, even if it's not planned, way in advance. And the trouble is, and we have another word for it. We use the word called expectations, don't we? We have expectations of how something is going to play out, how something is going to happen. The trouble is that there are always things that we don't plan for. And so because of this truth in life, that you can, listen, the only way to do it is to have a crystal ball. And we plan the best we can, but we have to learn to have, because of this reason, because accidents happen, we have to learn to have patience. Right? So we actually have to plan on these things in our plans. Plan on having time set aside to be patient because accidents are going to happen. Let's move on. The third thing is this. You can come up with a bunch of different stuff on your own, and maybe this is I saw this as a different thing, but it's this, is that we're all imperfect. We're all imperfect. Now, what I mean by that is more than just we're different, that we all make mistakes. Sometimes we do things that are just, we just mess up. Here's the thing. Do you think that you're born with patience? Babies are the most impatient, right, creatures on the planet. When they want to eat right then, right now. And they just start screaming. Man, that was Brent. We used to, when they started eating cereal, man, that was fantastic. We had these little bottles like this. And I remember holding him, putting that bottle, he was screaming, put the bottle in, and it sucked this mush down, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And as soon as it was done, if Michelle would have another one ready, he would start screaming again, right? Just as impatient as he can be. So I say that to say this to you. Any bit of patience that you have in your life right now, you've learned it. You've learned it. You were not born a patient creature. You were not born a patient human. If you have any semblance of patience whatsoever in your life, you have learned that patience. That's important for us to know. It's important for you to know that this is something that we can learn. Listen to this. 1 Timothy 1:16 says this, "But for this very reason I was shown mercy, so that in me, the worst of sinners, Christ Jesus might display his immense patience as an example of those who would believe in him and receive eternal life." So here's the thing. I want to talk about 5 things that how people have learned patience, and we can too. You and I can too. The first one is in this verse, and that's this: to remember that God has been patient with you. I think that's why Paul, think about it for a minute. This is Paul saying this in Timothy. That's why, now kind of see this all globally. So Paul's writing on love and saying, listen, so God is love. God identifies himself as love. And so Paul's writing about love, which he's writing about God, right? I mean, it's one and the same thing. He says he is love, and he's writing about what love is. We already talked about all the stuff that it's not. It's not an emotional, it's not a feeling. Although those come along with it, associated with it, right? So Paul's writing about what this is, and the very first thing he says is patience. And then here in Timothy, he says this: "But for this very reason, I was shown mercy, so that in me, the worst of sinners, Christ Jesus might display his immense patience." The very first thing that you and I need to do is remember my own life, my own self. Paul says, listen, I was the worst. How many of you, before you kind of found Christ, not that he was missing, but in your life he was maybe missing, and you found him. How many went around persecuting people who believed in Jesus to the point of killing them? Anybody? Nobody. That was Paul. And Paul's saying, hear me now. All through that time, God was patient with me. He was patient with me. He showed his mercy through his patience with me. Somebody living right now in a way that you disapprove of? Is there somebody? Somebody in your household? Somebody that you know? Remember your own life. Remember ways in which you lived even before you came to know him, or even after. And think, I'm so thankful that God is so patient with me. We can say, well, he knows I'm trying. Right? That's kind of what we think when we think of ourselves. He knows I'm trying. I'm doing the best I can. But when it comes to somebody else, we don't think those kind of thoughts, do we? So one of the very first things that you and I can do in learning how to be more patient is be constantly reminding ourselves of God being patient with me throughout my life and throughout your life. In 2 Peter, it says this: accept one another just as Christ has accepted you. Accept one another. Listen, that doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything somebody thinks or the way they're behaving. It doesn't mean that. I know this is hard. I know, because when we disapprove of somebody, we want to display our disapproval. We want to let them know that we disapprove of them. And we have our ways of doing it. You have your ways, don't you? Don't you? You have your ways, right? Your passive-aggressive ways of, right, expressing your disapproval of someone's lifestyle. So accept one another just as Christ has accepted you. He accepted you. That's it. Done. He accepted you. Not because you're perfect. Not because you tipped the scale to doing more good than wrong. No, it wasn't it at all. The Bible says, while you were still just lost in your sin and your, right? I'm not even talking about just bad things that we do. I'm talking about, anything that disrupts the peace of God in this world is against God. Anything. And so we remember that God is patient with us. Number two, another thing that you can do is, this is going to sound strange maybe, but write this down. Rest when you're fatigued. It's been said that Walt Disney, Winston Churchill, Harry Truman, there's tons of them. But I picked out these three. He said they took a nap every single day. Our friend Jeff down in Florida, he'll be here next Sunday. He takes a nap every single day. Even if it's just a 20-minute nap. He'll come home and go, we'll have gone golfing. We'll come back. He goes, I'm going to lay down. He goes, lay down for 20 minutes. I remember growing up, I'd go on the farm, work with Pete, and we'd come off the farm. We were baling hay or doing whatever, and we'd go in and eat lunch, and then we'd go out and up on the farm where Nate and Lydia live now, the house, there's a breezeway and there's a garage. That breezeway is aptly named because it's fantastic, right? There was a swing on there and a breeze coming through there, and we would sit down after lunch for about 15 or 20 minutes, and within like 30 seconds, Pete's dad would fall asleep. And another 30 seconds, Pete would fall asleep, and I'd be sitting there. They're like sleeping, I'm thinking, okay. In about 20 minutes, my eyes starting to get heavy. And they'd wake up and they'd be ready to go and be going, oh no, I'm just now winding down, right? And go out there. But that's all it takes, 15, 20 minutes. And so wise people understand the importance of rest. Understand the importance of what I am like and what you are like when you are fatigued. So in Numbers 21, there's a story about Israel. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but winning battles and so forth. And you kind of know the story. They want a battle, but they're out in the wilderness, they start grumbling to Moses. They start complaining about everything. They even start complaining about, they're saying, you brought us out here to die in the desert. Anybody know the story? Now, they had victories. Actually, if you kind of look at it, they were in slavery, they're out of slavery, their life is looking good. Winning battles and everything. They start complaining and grumbling. The food is, I don't have anything to eat or drink. They did, right? Because they say they don't have anything to eat or drink, and then they start complaining about the food they're eating, right? Why? Because they're tired. Because they were tired. Listen, friends, one of the times in our life when we really have a short fuse, just pay attention to your own life, look at your own life, is when you're fatigued. So I have a whole bunch of statistics here. I'm not gonna go into all of them, right? But talking about how years ago there were some speculations as to the amount of time that Americans mostly are going to have free time. We're only going to work maybe 3 or 4 hours a day because of automation and everything, because of the way everything is going with, right? That was back in like the 60s. That was some predictions. That like in 20 years that we're not going to have anything to do. And did that happen? Not even close. Now they're talking about like how much we work, and the work-life balance is so screwed up. So here's just a couple things. In the 60s, only 20% of mothers work. Today, it's 70% of all American children live in households where the adults in that household work. America, this isn't about agreeing or disagreeing. This isn't about, philosophical ideas about it. There's some just statistics, okay? The United States is the only country in the Americas without a national paid parental leave benefit. The U.S. is the only one. The average is over 12 weeks of paid leave anywhere other than Europe, which in Europe it's 20 weeks. We have 0 in America. The average work week is not 40 hours, right? I mean, there's all different kind of, you can do anything with numbers, I get that. But what they're saying is the majority of people don't work just 40 hours. I mean, there's statistics 50 hours, 60 hours, 65, 68 hours. But 66.5 is maybe a good average, but it's definitely more than 40 hours a week. Listen to this. The Americans work 137 more hours per year than the Japanese, 260 more hours per year than the British, 499 more hours than the French workers work. So we're working more and more and more, aren't we? Listen, as a nation is what I'm talking about. As individuals, we get that, but as a nation, well, if a nation is collectively, if a nation gets fatigued, what happens? You start doing what? Right? You start having lack of patience. You start grumbling, just like Israel. I think there are great lessons to be learned. You know, the Bible is so rich with all kind of things for life. If you just pay attention to it, if you just know what to look for, right? So often we just listen. I know this is my personal soapbox that I get on periodically. But so often we come to the Bible and all we can do, because we lack so much imagination, is just take it literally. Just read it as literal and that's it. When there's so much in there for us to glean from. We look at Israel, just after victory, after God doing so much great things in their life. Because they're so tired, they start grumbling against Moses, against God. We as a nation are getting that exact same way. You know, one of the things I was reading about patience, I was looking at Psychology Today and these different things. One of the things I came across was actually from just a blogger writing about it. And it was this. One of the things he says he does for his wife, and he does it, I can't remember exactly. I think it's maybe I'll just say once a month. I don't remember. But anyways, he gives his wife, so we can say give your spouse, give him a day off. Just give him a day off. What does that mean? That means, listen, we all have home responsibilities, don't we? We all have different things we do at home. What he's saying is I give my wife a day off. From the time she wakes up, he was talking about he had little kids. He took care of the kids, whether it was got them to school or do whatever. Before she got up, took care of that. She could leave, and when she came home at the end of the day, everything was done. Kids were in bed, everything. The day off. But the idea behind that is this. Listen, we all need, that's why the Bible talks about a Sabbath day, a day of rest. Because we all need that in our life. Now, whether or not it's a Sunday or not, that's not the point. The day is irrelevant. But the principle is important. That we all need time off. We all need to have our own personal Sabbath. Whether that's a period of time within your day. Maybe you set your phone to go off at a certain time, 3 o'clock every day. Because at 3 o'clock, I need to remove myself from wherever I'm at, right? And I need to have a Sabbath 15 minutes, a nap, or whatever it is, right? Because I realize that if I keep going, then I'm just going to keep fatiguing myself. It's not going to help me with my patience. And so we can develop these habits in our life and help our spouses to do the exact same thing. Teach our children that from the time they're young to listen. That's why like the Sabbath kind of thing is really important, right? And I say the Bible is a wisdom book. I know that bothers some people, right? But what I mean by that is this: is that like the Bible says, keep the Sabbath holy. This idea of a Sabbath day. Well, and that you can make it legalistic, and you could say, listen, it has to be on a Sunday, and you can't do it then. But listen, our day and age, sometimes people have to work on Sundays. Sometimes you have to do things right. So you have to use wisdom, and you have to say, what's this getting at? How do I keep this nugget of wisdom, right, in my life? A lot of times for pastors, they make it on Monday. They take a Monday off, or a Friday, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But to set aside a time, maybe for you, maybe Sunday's not the day. Maybe you need a different day. But set aside, listen friends, set aside a time. Do it. Set aside a time. Set aside a week or 2 weeks for a vacation or whatever. Because you need to do it for your own life. You need to do it for your health. I have all kinds of notes in here about that, about health. But I do that so often, I'm not gonna. Okay, let's move on. Number three is this. Listen, I know we're about out of time, but you got to hear these. Number 3 is this. Respond only after listening. Young girl comes home to her mom and says, "Mom, where did I come from? Because I was on the playground today, and Sally said to me," the mother said, "Listen, hold on a minute, come here, sit down." Sits her down, said, "Okay, now's the time. I need to explain everything." She goes into the whole birds and the bees, right? She's talking to her daughter about the birds and the bees and everything, and just puts it all out there. And the girl is sitting there like a deer in headlights, her eyes like this big, and she said, "Wow, Mom, that's unbelievable. But thanks for sharing that with me. But Sally said she came from Cleveland. Where did I come from?" How many of you hear but you don't listen? Yeah. I think we save ourselves a lot of headache to learn how to listen. Learn how to listen. I think we'll save ourselves a lot. Listen to this. Proverbs 14:29. A patient man has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. Great understanding. How do you get understanding? Well, you get understanding by learning, right? We have to learn things. How do you get learning? By talking, of course. No. How do you get learning? By listening. By listening. So I read this story. It's in a biography. It's about Franklin Roosevelt. He was convinced that people just do not listen. So there was an event at the White House, and he decided that he would test it out. So he's in a reception line, and everybody he met and shook their hand, he said this: "Hi, I killed my mother today. Hi, I killed my mother today. Hi, I killed my mother today." He did this. It's a true story. Everybody's, "Oh, yeah." They just were enamored by the president or whatever and talk. Finally, one woman, only one person out of the whole reception line stopped and said, well, I'm sure then she deserved it. So that was one response to him. Listen to this. I want to explain to you why we really need to learn how to listen. Okay? So you may wonder, what does that have to do with patience, right? What does listening have to do with patience? Listen to this. Of the 500 most used words in the English language, okay? The 500 most used words in the English language have over 14,000 definitions. 500 words, the most used words in the English language, have over 14,000 definitions. Many of these words have over 100 definitions. Just let that sink in for a minute. Of the 500 most common, most used words in the English language, 14,000 different definitions. So let's think about it for a minute. Even if you're really listening, what are the chances that you may misinterpret? Pretty good, aren't they? Pretty good. So listening So they say, listen, 7% of communication is content. That's the words that you're using. 7% is content. How many love email? Even worse, text messages. Anybody ever confuse one of your text messages? Confuse your text message, right? Okay, so just think of the progression. With somebody in front of them, you're talking to them, okay? You're talking to them. They're looking at you, they're reading everything about you. They're reading your body language, right? I read your body language when I'm speaking, right? When I see, crossed arms, when I see leaning back, people looking out the window. And I know it's time for me to wrap up. You know what I mean? Yeah, like Martin just did this. He just crossed his arm, just folded his legs, rolled his eyes. I got it, Marty. Yeah, so now, okay, so here's the progression. And now I'm trying to understand your words, and so I'm using your body language. I'm using your with your body language, posture, using the tone of your voice, right? Circumstances, situation. I'm using all of that, and I could still get it wrong. Now let's take the visual away and put us on the phone. I'm still hearing your voice and stuff like that. I'm not going to get as much. Now take it to the written word, right? Write it out and get something, right? The written word. Now put it in an email, and I don't know anything about because that could come real fast. At least when you write it down, more thought goes. Isn't it true? Yeah. More thought goes into it when you're writing it out longhand. More thought. Emails are just quick. Put those out there, send it. Now, what are the chances of miscommunication? They're going up exponentially, aren't they? Now put it in a text with all the shorthand and all that kind of stuff, exponentially. Now put it on a voice text. How many have sent out a voice text without pre-reading it? Anybody do that? And somebody looks at it and goes, what was that? What are you? Sorry. And then do it, send it out, and then you have to go back and go, sorry, that wasn't for you. Anybody do that one? Oh yeah, do that one. I mean, how about getting one like that? What in the world is Al talking about? This was not meant for me. It had to not be meant for me. If it was, I'm afraid of that. Okay, so here's the thing. This is another reason why we need patience. Because communication is a difficult thing, isn't it? It's a difficult thing. Because most of it's happening now when we're not face to face. Hey, so many times I've heard people say something about a message or something. I'm going, did I say that? Is that what you heard? Because that had nothing to do with my message. That's what you heard. Somehow that's what you heard. Right? And so understand that's what happens with you as well. You think you're communicating something and people come away with something completely different. Number four is this: remember to make allowances. A grandma was talking to her kids or grandkids one time, and she'd been married over 50 years, and they were asking, they said, Grandma, how is it that you guys have stayed married so long and such a good marriage? And the grandmother said, when we first got married, I decided that understanding that no one's perfect, right? And that my husband's not. So I made a list. I was going to make a list of 10 things that if he ever did these 10 things, that I would give him a pass throughout our whole marriage. And so that's that was it. And they said, really, Grandma, that's unbelievable. Tell us what Grandpa's 10 things are. And Grandma said, well, the trouble is I never got around to writing those 10 things down. Just whenever he would do anything that would just get on my nerves, I would say, oh, he's so lucky that's on the list. Isn't that good? Didn't make allowances. Not just for those who you love, but those who are just out there. Make allowance. Ephesians 4:2. Be patient with each other. Guess what it says? making allowances for each other's faults because of love. Make allowances. No matter who it is, right? Make allowances for people. Don't hold them to some high standard that you can't even keep yourself. So we make allowances. Here's the thing. We all have bad days, don't we? We all have bad days. When you have a bad day, do you sometimes take it out on just indiscriminate people, right? Proverbs 19:11 says this, a person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's own glory to overlook an offense. Did you hear that? Let me read it to you again, because I think it's went over your head. I don't think you're actually listening. Listen, a person's wisdom yields patience. Now listen, it is to one's own glory to overlook an offense. Do you ever hear someone say, I couldn't believe it. I was just so offended. Yeah, I want to say to somebody, well, don't be. Like, don't be offended. Isn't that a choice? Isn't it? Yeah. It's a choice. I choose to be offended. Okay, then choose not to be. Listen, it's to your benefit not to take an offense. Not to anybody else's. It's to your benefit. Why are we our own worst enemy? Why is that? Because we just don't even stop to think, or we don't even heed instructions that we see in the Bible, things that we hear, just good, wise things. It's to your own glory to overlook an offense. Has somebody offended you recently? Overlook it. Oh, I'm not going to do that. Are you kidding me? It's to your glory. It's to your benefit. Don't believe it? Just try it. Just try it. Listen, I'm not saying you have to just carte blanche believe things that are in the Bible. Test it out. See how it works. Choose not to be offended. I'm not going to let that bother me. Yeah, no, that may have been mean and insensitive, but you know what? I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to overlook it. Wow. Let me ask you, would you want people to do that for you? You ever had a bad day and do something? Oftentimes, right? I tell stories here all the time about me and Michelle. It's just the way life is, right? And I'll come home and we'll have some big fight. She'll go, what happened to you today? And I of course, right off the bat, when she's right, I don't want to admit it. You know what I mean? So it takes me a while to come around to admit it, what happened. But what I want her to do is to just realize that and just overlook it. But I can't worry about her. I have to worry about who? Me. So don't worry about anybody else right now. Worry about you. Think about you. I say, that's what I need to do. I need to learn how to overlook an offense. Next time you're offended, say, you know what? I'm not going to be. I choose not to be offended. I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to move on. It's to your glory. Number five. Now there are whole, you could just Google it. It's unbelievable. Remain confident in the power of patience. There's a Chinese proverb that says this, patience is power. Proverbs 25:15 says this, through patience a ruler can be persuaded. Real quick, there's a story. You can Google her name too. Anne Schreiber, Scheiber. She's kind of unknown. She was kind of a recluse. New York woman. She worked for the Internal Revenue Service. And she retired from the IRS in 1944. She never, are you with me? Everybody look at me for a minute. She never earned more than $4,000 a year. Okay? She never earned more than $4,000 a year. Even her pension was even less. So after she retired, her pension was, with her pension and Social Security on top of that, but her pension was $3,000 a year. She died in 1985. Her pension was $3,000 a year. when she died, I don't have the number here, but she gave millions to a woman's university. You should Google it. Google her name. She was so frugal, she would go to the library, and she wouldn't get the New York Times. She would go to the library and just read it there, and she would look at different stocks, and she started investing. And she'd invest money, just squirrel away a little bit here and there. She never earned more than $4,000 a year. And she'd squirrel a little bit away and invest, and then problems with the stock market, and she would lose money, and she would just stay with it. Just pick a couple, good stuff. She stuck with it. And what's the moral to her story? She had to just hang in there, didn't she? She had to be patient. She had to be patient through the ups, through the downs. When she died, she had brothers and sisters, but she was kind of recluse, and she gave over, I think it was over $20-some million. Friends, she never earned more than $4,000 a year. She gave over $20 million to a university. Now, patience is for the long haul. It's for the long haul. I think we need to have that same kind of patience when it comes to people, even more so, don't you think? Have that same kind of patience. In it for the long haul. They're going to overlook that. They're going to come around. Ecclesiastes 7:8 says this, "The end of a matter is better than the beginning, and patience is better than pride." The truth is this, that patience is a lifelong spiritual practice. Isn't it always how you tell the story? My friend Jeff and I, that's a line that we always use. It's all in how you tell the story, right? And so someone's telling a story, and Jeff and I will interject. It's kind of like that when you're watching football or listening to football or baseball on TV. You have the guy who's doing the play-by-play, and then you have the other guy that's doing the what? The color. He's adding all this stuff in there. So when anybody's telling a story, Jeff and I always add the color to it, right? It's all in how you tell the story. How are you telling your story to yourself? Right? How are you, what's the picture you're painting for yourself? Because the truth is this, that patience isn't a one-time thing. It's a lifelong spiritual pursuit. Just see it that way. Hey, this is what spirituality is. Do you ever wonder that? You think spirituality is, how you read your Bible, you go to church. No, spirituality is, how are you doing with your patience in life? So what I've given us some things to be mindful of where we're going to need patience, and some things in our life that we can kind of start to look at, start to remember, right? Yeah, I know. I do. I tend to listen. When you get tired, isn't it true that you can lose your patience even with good things, right? Good things happen to you, and you somehow lose your patience. Somebody looks at you like, "Are you kidding me?" And you realize, "Oh man, that's really bad. I'm losing my patience with good things in my life because I'm just so stinking tired." I think these are just good, wise things. Pay attention to them in your life. You need to write them down. Take your notes with you. Think about them. Because learning and developing and growing in your patience is what spirituality is all about. Not just that, but that's a part of it, isn't it? Let's stand. Let me just read this last thing I have, because this is so important. Patience is the ability to rest comfortably in the present moment. You're going to have to think about that. I want you to think about that. Patience is the ability to rest comfortably in the present moment right now. Rest comfortably in that. And when you develop this when you develop this ability in your life, let me tell you something. You're going to be set. You're going to be set. Let's pray. Father, thanks so much for your presence in our life, for your patience, for your loving patience in our life. Help us, God, to use the wisdom that we heard today and that we gleaned from your word. Help us to develop it in our life in this ever spiritual pursuit of patience. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thanks, friends. Have a great day.